Well, welcome to the Potential Leader Lab, and I'm your host, Perry Maughmer, and today we're going to talk about why true leaders pursue meaning, not metrics. Now, here in the lab is where we treat leadership as a moment-to-moment choice to create a better world for those we care about. And we want to redefine leadership as action and influence that everyone can embrace, regardless of title, position, authority, whatever. So I'm glad you're here to join me as we explore, experiment, and evolve your potential. And the reason is because the world needs what you have to offer. So let's dig into today's topic of why real, true leaders pursue meaning, not metrics. Now, there's a caveat here. I'm not saying metrics aren't important by any means, by any stretch of the imagination. I'm just saying they're not very inspirational. I've had more than one conversation in the last, let's call it 6 months, with different leadership teams and companies where we spend a little bit of time talking about their mission, vision, values, all the kind of, I'll call it inspirational things that matter. And then after they're done, and I will be honest, most of the time, I would say well over 80% of the time, when I ask a group of people, can anybody tell me your mission, vision, and values? I would say almost 95%, maybe even 99% of the time. In fact, let me just say this. I don't remember a time when anybody could do it, because most people will give me some version of it. They'll have maybe a sentence of it. They'll get 3 out of 5 values, all of that, right? So they'll stumble around with it. They'll pull out some papers. They'll go to a file. Between 3 people, they might piece it together, but nobody can rattle it off. Now, I ask them about their metrics and about their revenue targets and about their efficiency percentages and about, any number of metrics in their business, and holy mackerel, can they rattle those off. It's boom, 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 right down the line. And this is the leadership team, right? And I ask them, okay, based on that, what do you think the people in your organization believe you stand for? Do you stand for what your mission, vision, and values are, or do you stand for your metrics? What's really important in this organization? And all of them answer honestly, and they say metrics. That's what's important. And then I ask them the second question, is that what you want to be important? And almost 100% of the time, the answer is no. Well, we have to understand that whatever we talk about all the time is what people believe is important. So if all we're talking about is revenue, profit, labor percent, error rate, whatever. If all we're doing is talking about all those metrics, whatever they might be, retention, whatever it is, they're believe me, they're all important. I'm not saying do away with metrics. I'm just stopping. Part of this conversation is going to be around what should we be thinking about and talking about more. Because one of the challenges that I hear from lots of organizations is around accountability, motivation, inspiration. How do we get people to give their best? How do we get them to be accountable? How do we create this environment? Well, what we default to is, we'll metric the hell out of everybody, and we'll give them rewards, and we'll carrot and stick them, right? By the way, I had this conversation the other day with somebody. I'm like, since when is a carrot going to motivate anybody to do anything? I mean, carrots are good and all, but shouldn't it be like cake and stick them? Chocolate and stick them? Because I don't know anybody motivated by a carrot, right? Nobody's going to be like, oh, a carrot, awesome. I can't wait to do this. But I digress. So we're going to talk a little bit about what's meaningful. Now, we're going to bring a couple different things in here. Most of this conversation I'm going to share with you is really based on work that Mark Murphy did. And he had a book in 2010 called Hard Goals, HARD. It's an acronym, and it stands for Heartfelt, Animated, Required, and Difficult. I love the book. We're really going to dig into Heartfelt. We're not going to get into the other ones as much. I'll explain them a little bit. But it's a wonderful, wonderful, as far as goals go, if you got to have them, to me, this is why SMART goals, whatever other acronym you want to use. Okay, if it works, it works. I don't care. You do whatever works for you. You do you. But for me, the thought of having a heartfelt goal, and I'll tell you why, because I'm going to read you 3 questions here in a little bit that you can actually score to see if it is heartfelt. But to me, that's what matters, right? That's what inspires and challenges, is something that connects to my heart. As the saying goes, the longest journey you ever take in your life is 18 inches from your head to your heart. And I can tell you, after 10 years of working with leaders and organizations and giving them the opportunity to talk about what bothers them, what keeps them up at night, it starts off in their head. It starts off with what I'll call a head problem, a logic problem, a profit problem. And almost 100% of the time, it turns into a heart problem. And I don't mean they have high blood pressure. What I mean is it turns into something they feel, because they know what the problem is. They almost always know what the solution could be. It's about the will to act, which is a heart issue, not a head issue. It's oftentimes, most of the time, not what will you do. The question is, will you do it? You already know what to do, but will you do it? So, and I'm gonna weave in here. So we're gonna talk about Mason's book, Mark Mason's book, Hard Goals, and then we're also gonna Mark Murphy's goal, Mark Murphy's Hard Goals book, 2010. Then we're also gonna weave in a little bit of Maslow. So we're gonna talk about self-transcendence and self-actualization at the top of his hierarchy of human needs. So we're gonna kind of weave all these things together. So here we go. Now, I'm also going to talk a little bit about Dan Pink's book, Drive. We're going to talk about Peter Diamandis's massively transformative purpose. We're going to touch on a couple of these things just to bring in some different viewpoints. But really, this stems from a lot of this is around how do we set up an environment where people are self-motivated. Now, what Dan Pink's work will tell you is that it's around 3 things: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. We're going to spend most of our time today talking about purpose. That's the tie-in, the P part of that, AMP. We're going to use the purpose part. Autonomy and mastery are awesome. I actually believe it works in order. You have to start with purpose, because I have to align with that as an individual. My purpose overlaps your purpose as an organization. I'm inspired by that. Then I'm going to work on my mastery. And then once I've become more masterful in what I do, I'll earn my autonomy. And if I get all 3 of those things in that environment, you don't have to worry about motivating anybody. It just happens. So with that said, we're going to jump into a heartfelt. Now, heartfelt goal is a goal that deeply resonates and aligns with personal values and extending into realms of purpose and service. So Murphy did this awesome thing. He actually had this kind of checklist for each of these, each of the acronyms, like each of the heartfelt, animated, required, and difficult. So here are the 3 questions that you would rank on a score of 1 to 7. So here are the 3 questions to determine how heartfelt a goal is. Number 1, something inside of me keeps pushing me to achieve this goal even when things get in the way. That's number 1. Number 2, when I think about this goal, I feel really strong emotions. And finally, I mentally own this goal. It doesn't belong to anybody other than me. And even if somebody else initially gave me the idea for it, it's 100% my goal now. I own it, heart and soul. So I didn't even get to the animated, required, and difficult. Those 3 questions. As you're planning for next year, because Lord knows you probably are going to have New Year's resolutions, right? It's the most wonderful time of the year. So that's going to happen here soon. You're going to start thinking about all the great stuff you're going to do in 2025. Which is awesome, you should. But I want you to think about, as you write those things down, I want you to think about score of 1 to 7 with those three statements. And how would you rate them for your goal, whatever those goals are? Does something inside of you keep pushing you to achieve that goal even when things get in the way? And when you think about that goal, do you have strong emotions? Hopefully positive, not negative, but either will work. And third, do you mentally own the goal? And even if it belongs to nobody but you. Even if somebody originally gave you the idea, you now own it 100%. It's yours, heart and soul. And if your score is a 1, 2, or 3, or even a 4 on some of those things, I doubt it's going to happen. Now, the reason this is important, if you think about this, and I'm going to connect it now with Maslow's idea of self-transcendence, because self-transcendence was the top of the pyramid, not self-actualization. It wasn't, it was moving beyond ourselves. And if you think about this, go back to Daniel Pink, and we go back to purpose, and we go to heartfelt goals, and we go to self-transcendence. Those three things, and then we look at Diamandis's massively transformative purpose, those three things all line up. They all extend beyond us. Because my argument is that no goal just about you ticks all those boxes. When we get motivated, when we truly get inspired, it's about what we can do for others. It's about the impact we'll have on other people. It's about legacy. It's about breadth of impact. But if all I'm concerned about is my own little world and what I want and about me, it's very hard to find that level of motivation and inspiration in those goals. It needs to go beyond what I'll call traditional achievement. Because you want to contribute in a way that leaves a lasting positive mark on those around you. That's what leaders do. We do for the reason of others. We want to leave some kind of lasting impact. We want to make sure that people understand it's for them, not for us, not for our ego, not because I want something, but because as a group, we can achieve something different. Why do you think we call it a vision in an organization? Right? So, William Bridges has this great, he calls it, it doesn't call it a change model. He calls it it's not a transformation model either. Well, either way, you look up William Bridges' change model. I'll just throw that out there because you'll find it. He says there are 4 P's to this kind of communication: purpose, picture, plan, and part. And picture, I'm connecting picture to vision. Because if I have a picture of the future, and that's what vision is. A vision for an organization is what their future, what they believe the future looks like and how they play a role in it. And that's what's motivating the people. What's the future look like? How am I positively impacting the future? How am I, by definition of leadership, creating a better world for those I care deeply about? That's what motivates us. That's what inspires us. It's about creating something of value for other people in the future. So, again, I want to set this up. So you have Murphy's hard goals. So H is heartfelt. A is animated. So think about this. So a heartfelt goal is it stirs deep emotion and connects to my personal values, right? So I have to know my personal values in order to connect to them. So it connects to me at my personal value level. Then it's animated. It's so vivid that I can envision it clearly. Again, it goes back to, if you look at Bridges' model, it's picture. Then it's required. They feel non-negotiable. It's not an option. And then finally, it's difficult. It challenges growth. Now, this goes to, the flow state is, in order for somebody to feel motivated, something has to slightly exceed their capacity. Not greatly exceed it. I think somewhere in the 4 to 7% past my capacity is motivational. It's where I can get into flow. So it has to be difficult. It can't be easy. And so when they are heartfelt, they kind of naturally line up with self-transcendence because it inspires leaders to think beyond ourselves, focusing on things like positive impact, social contribution, purpose-driven service. If it's something I'm doing in service of other people, I typically will be able to easily make sure that I overcome something getting in my way. And that's interesting, right? Because if you lead an organization, or if you run into this, do you ever run into people who maybe come to you with all kinds of problems all the time? Like, it seems like they never have solutions, but they always have the challenges. They have the hurdles. They have the things that are preventing them from doing something. And we always get frustrated well, maybe we should step back and say, did I create a compelling enough vision for this person? Did they not connect with what we're trying to do? Is it not heartfelt for them and for me? Because think about this in an organization. If you were to use this checklist about hard goals and you answered those statements with a score of 1 to 7, not only are you doing it for you, you're doing it for your team, you're doing it for your peers. These have to connect to everybody. Because if you can figure out a way to make this work, if you can figure out how to get all 7s on a scale of 1 to 7 on these things, you just get out of the way. The only thing you can do is screw it up. And that's the awesome part of this. So why do these heartfelt goals matter? Well, because we want to pursue things that are universal and personal. And it creates the foundation for truly transformative work. It's about the human condition. That's what moves us. What moves us are things that are universal. There are many, many times, and I'll share this. Lisa won't mind. Lisa's my wife, for those of you that haven't been around. So it isn't just her, but she and I were talking today. And I'd asked her a question about a previous episode of the podcast. And she said, oh, well, it felt like you were talking to somebody specifically. And I said, oh, that's interesting. I don't recall ever doing that. Like I don't get on here to grind an axe with somebody in an anonymous way. But some of these things are universal. And she goes, I actually felt like you were talking to me. And I'm like, well, I can guarantee you that wasn't the case. Like I'm not doing that. But she said, haven't you had people like shoot you a note or email you and say, hey, I listened to your podcast this morning and it felt like you were talking to me? And I said, yeah, I have. There's been some people that have done that. And she said to me, she's like, wasn't that the point? Like, isn't that what your goal is? And it is. But the reason it works is because it's universal. Here's the newsflash. Most of the stuff I'm telling you, I need to hear. So it starts there. I'm exploring topics that are of interest to me because of my own personal evolution. I'm not sitting here thinking about what do all of you people need. You guys are really screwed up. I have to help you. That's not what I'm doing here. I'm looking up stuff that I go, oh, crap. That's me. Like, I got to figure that shit out. And so I explore it. And then this is my way to experiment with the content so that I can figure out. I've got plenty. If you're watching the YouTube, I got plenty of the YouTube video. I got plenty of notes here. Because these are the things that I think about for me. How am I doing this? Because I don't have this stuff figured out. I'm not speaking from the standpoint of I've figured it out. Let me share it with all of you peons. Like, that's not what this is. This is a joint effort. This is I'm struggling with all this shit too. Like, I'm trying to make sense of the world just like you are. I'm lucky enough that the work I do for a living, I get to do this like 80% of the time. Like, this is my job. Not just doing this, but the work I do with other people. All I do is research and explore how people think, act, and behave. That's it. That's my job. So I get to benefit tremendously personally from doing that work because I can practice on myself. I can create my own experiments. So when I'm telling you it doesn't work, and I'm telling you that it's awkward, and I'm telling you you got to screw a bunch of stuff up, I'm telling you because I've done those things. I continue to do those things routinely. Because this will never be figured out. So part of why this matters, it is the intersection of humility and hubris. Right? It's balancing. Those are the same side of different sides of a same coin. Now, you want to get to the point where you have this profound sense of purpose that can sustain you through the challenge. And I use it. Here's the statement. You get to a point where there's a goal that you say to yourself, I cannot not do it. So think about that. You get to a point where you're like, I can't not do this. Like it with every being, I have to try harder to not do it than do it. And again, just out of, even a blind squirrel finds a nut every now and then. So the work that I do, it is a natural self-expression of who I am. The danger I have is that I can't stop doing it. Like anybody who comes up to me and I start talking to them, I start instantly trying to figure out how I can give them things that they can use and to help them, regardless of if they're a client or not. Just bump into somebody on the street or talk to somebody on the phone. That's how I see the world. I can't not do it. I just got lucky. But you can too. We all create our worlds. So you have to think about what are the characteristics of these heartfelt self-transcendent goals. So here are 3. One is it's purpose-driven for other people. It serves a mission beyond yourself, and it focuses on the betterment of the team, the community, society. I don't care how large you want to go. Now, if you go to Diamandis's massively transformative purpose, the really interesting thing when you get into that is it's going to be something you never achieve, which we're going to talk about in a minute, which is just kind of mind-blowing and mind-altering. If you shift your mindset to that, where I can never achieve this in my lifetime, but the mere pursuit of it makes me better and brings me in alignment with my own self-expression to do my best work for everybody else, that's a game changer. So purpose-driven for other people. You're doing it that's where you find motivation, inspiration, where those two things cross, if you look at Maslow, when you go to self-actualization, where that overlaps self-transcendence, where me pursuing my own best self also enables me to serve others to the best of my capacity. Wow. Right? How's it going to be better? So that leads to authenticity, because goals aligned with core beliefs fosters authenticity, and you then become the example. You're not thinking anymore. You're just showing up. And I'm sure you've experienced this. I'm sure you've either seen other people do this, or maybe you do it all the time, or maybe you do it some of the time, because we can't do it all the time. But whenever you can just show up and people get energy from being around you, you don't have to do anything. They're just feeding off of your energy because you're in that spot. You're in that zone where you're perfectly aligned with your purpose. And you're pursuing your best self in the service of other people. And this aligns, easily with explore and evolve stages of the framework. Because you can only evolve when you reach beyond your self-interest towards a goal that contributes to the greater good. It has to be for other people. Well, it doesn't have to be. Here's what I mean by that. Once you can figure that part of it out, you turn on an endless supply of motivation. You no longer have to get motivated. When your feet hit the floor in the morning, you're off and running. And you're thinking about it all the time, and it's not work. It's purpose. Those are very different things. So how do we identify these things? Well, number one, self-reflection. Ask yourself the question, how do my goals benefit other people? If you look at the goals you're going to set for yourself for next year, this year, the fourth quarter, first quarter, I don't care what cadence you use, but if you have a list of goals, think about how do these benefit, who do they benefit, and how do they benefit them? And if they don't benefit anybody else but you, I'm going to guess you're not going to achieve them. And if you do, it's going to be a heavy lift. But even think about just back up and reframe the goal. Like if your goal is to be in better health, be in better shape, you want to be healthier. that's an awesome goal. I can tell you right now, that's not just for you. That's for those you care deeply about. Maybe it's because maybe it's because as you age and you know you're going to have grandkids, you want to be able to run around and play with your grandkids in 10 years. You want to have the energy to do that. You want to spend the next 20 years with your spouse traveling all over the company or all over the country. You want to be able to do that. You can quickly figure out that a lot of the goals you have are actually for other people. You just don't think about it like that. You don't frame it that way. And then what lasting impact do you want to create? It doesn't matter where you work. It doesn't matter if you work somewhere. What matters is who are the people you care deeply about and what lasting impact do you want to create for them? Family, friends, your community, your place of worship, your work. Doesn't matter. All I'm saying is people, who do you care deeply about and what lasting impact do you want to have on them? And then a values and purpose alignment. You get to choose the goals. Choose the ones that reflect both your values and a commitment to something that goes beyond you. That's the frame through which you can use to select goals. It isn't just about selecting goals. It's about, do they fit in the frame? And then spend a little time visualizing your legacy. What do you want to leave behind? What we leave behind is in other people. How are other people, how is their life going to be better from knowing you? That's it. Not what you did for them, but who you are. You know, I often say there's not many binary things in the world, but there is one situation where I believe is totally binary. And that is when you interact with somebody, they either feel better or worse. That's it. You've either built them up or tore them down. So how are you building other people up? Because people will not forget that. That is something that does not happen enough in this world. And as Maya Angelou said, when I won't remember what you said, I won't remember what you did, I will always remember how you made me feel. How do you make people feel? This isn't, you don't have to be Pollyanna-ish about it. You can have a difficult conversation with somebody and still build them up. Still, they feel empowered and emboldened to act. It's all about intent. What is your intent when you deal with the person? And then you have to create a space for introspection and understanding of your place in a broader context. How do you fit in? Where do you fit in the world? And this is where humility and hubris come in. I'll leave it at that. You figure it out. Humility, it's the intersection of humility and hubris. As C.S. Lewis said, don't think less about yourself, just think about yourself less. Now, I will tell you also, when you start doing this, the biggest thing that this does for you is it gives you clarity, and it gives you the capacity, and it gives you the desire, and it forces you to say no a lot. And that's awesome. Because for everything you're saying no to, it's the other stuff you're saying yes to. And you can't say yes, because if you say yes to everything, you are saying no to some things. So you have to understand what's truly important and meaningful and transcendent and all of those things. What do you value? What's your purpose? I often tell people, you don't need to tell me what you value. Just let me look at two things, your checkbook and your calendar. And I'll tell you what you value. It's where you spend your time and money. That's what you value. Now, the other thing the most important thing that I think this does, the impact of this, if you have self-transcendent, heartfelt goals, the most important thing is it gives you an unlimited access to resilience. Nothing stops you. You don't have to worry about setbacks anymore. By the way, they're coming whether you want them or not. Doesn't matter. Like, you're always going to have setbacks. That's the way the world works. But when you've got the connection of a heartfelt self-transcendent goal, it doesn't matter. The setbacks don't matter anymore. They don't have an adverse impact on you. It's just a bump in the road. Things bounce off of you. And it's like, oh, yep, whoop, won't do that again. Keep going. Because you're going to go over, around, through, or under it. Doesn't matter. In fact, you don't even get aggravated with it anymore. You don't even think about it. You're just relentlessly moving forward towards that thing because it is self-transcendent. It helps you with your self-actualization, and it's heartfelt. You can't not do it. So nothing's going to get in your way and you're going to give up. Nothing's going to be like, oh, whew, guess that's it. We ran into that problem. No way to fix that. Guess we'll just not do it. I mean, some of the stuff that we've read about in philosophy is there for a reason. Nietzsche saying a man who has a why can suffer any how. Why do you think we still believe that after a couple hundred years? I mean, just think about that. If you have a why, you can suffer any how. Which is just a more eloquent way of saying what I just said. If you care enough about it, if it's heartfelt, it doesn't matter what's in front of you. Nothing stops you. Not in a hurry. We're not getting it done today, tomorrow. It's going to get done. Like I had this same commitment, and this is just a weird. It popped into my head, so I'll share it. When I met Lisa years ago, I mean, we've been married. We've known each other 34 years. Been married 33. I remember where we were. We had only known each other probably less than 60 days. I'll say safely less than 60 days. And we were on, I believe it was Henderson Road. We were at a Bob Evans. I remember that. And I think it was on Henderson Road. And we were out at our car. We were standing on each side of the car. We hadn't got in yet. We were talking across the top of the car. And we were joking about something. And I said to her, well, we're going to get married. And she just laughed. And she's like, what are you talking about? I go, well, we're going to get married. She goes, I don't understand. Why would you say that? I go, well, because we are. And she goes, well, when? I go, doesn't matter when. It's only a matter of when, not a matter of if. And it was, ha, ha, ha. She thought I was kidding. Maybe she thought I was weird and that was the last time we're going to see each other. Maybe she thought I got to get rid of this guy. I don't know. But the reality was we got married about 4 months later. And to me, the pressure was off. Like it really wasn't I wonder what's going to happen. It was just, well, this is going to happen. Like, this is going to happen. I don't care when. It didn't matter to me. The decision had been made. I was resolved to that. So there was no more discussion around it. We didn't have to talk about it. I didn't have to struggle with it. It was done. That's what this does. When you have clarity on why, hows don't matter. Now, the flip side of that is if all of the hows matter, if you're leading and so many hows are coming up all the time, the why is not clear enough. The why is not compelling enough. The why is not self-transcendent enough. The why is not heartfelt enough. So spend time thinking about if your people are coming to you with constant, well, what about this and how and blah, 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 and this hurdle and that hurdle and this hurdle. What they're telling you is the other thing's not clear enough for me. It's not profound enough for me. Because once you flip that switch, those hows go away. So how do we overcome barriers? There are barriers to self-transcendent goals that are heartfelt. One of them is short-termism. Everybody's focused on 90 days, 60 days, the next quarter, the next 6 months, the next year, let's say. Heartfelt self-transcendent goals require a long-term perspective. Are we taking the long view? Again, some of these will never be achieved, but the mere pursuit of them makes us better, and it makes the world better. We don't have to achieve it. We just have to keep working at it. Being personal sacrifices. Some of this stuff's going to require sacrifice. And that's what will lead to a deeper sense of fulfillment. Now, what can we do? Well, if you're gonna commit to a self-transcendent, heartfelt goal, you got to establish accountability structures, and you have to figure out how to keep reminding yourself of the larger mission. What are we here to do? Because I feel sometimes like Don Quixote, right? For those of you that have read this story, right? He's tilting at windmills all the time because he thought they were giants. He was going to fight them all, right? But he had a quest. He had a quest. Do you have a quest? Because Don Quixote didn't get up in the morning and go, I wonder what I'm going to do today. Don Quixote's quest was to kill the giants. He didn't think about it. Like, so what's your quest? Everybody should have one. We should all have a quest. So here's how we integrate these things into our everyday actions, these self-transcendent, heartfelt goals. Daily intentions. Act intentionally. Start each day by setting intentions on what you're going to do that day in alignment with your self-transcendent, heartfelt goals. Make sure your calendar and your checkbook reflect these things. Wherever you spend your time or money is what matters. So just be intentional. Line those things up. Regular purpose check-ins. Periodic self-assessments, and you can have other people help you with this, a mentor or somebody else, to ensure that you're aligned with your heartfelt goal. What is what you're saying lining up with what you're doing? Which, by the way, is the definition of integrity, right? What did you say you want? And then tell me what you're doing and see if those things line up. If they do, keep doing it. If they don't, you either got to change the thing you say you want or change your behaviors. Either one's okay. It's your stuff. Like, nobody's given this to you. It's all your decision. It's all your choice. And you can choose differently if you want to. There's no shame in that. The only shame is to keep telling everybody you want to do this thing and then acting contrary to it. That does not feel good. And then once you do this, you're showing other people. You're showing your kids. You're showing your friends. You're showing your coworkers. You're showing your boss. You're showing everybody. And by the way, as you well know, favorite saying of all times, St. Thomas Aquinas, preach the gospel every day and use words only when necessary. That's leadership. I should not have to guess what you believe. I just should watch you. And if I watch you, I get it. You don't have to tell me. If you got to tell me, we got a problem. But remember, St. Thomas said, preach the gospel every day and use words when necessary. So, wrap this up. We're talking about self-transcendent, heartfelt goals. And they're not only the foundation to meaningful leadership, but they're also a source of never-ending motivation, inspiration, resilience, and fulfillment. So I'm going to challenge you to explore what that means for you and to take an actionable step in that direction. Ask yourself, what is self-transcendent and heartfelt for me? What can I put out there that would pull me towards it? What can I write down on a piece of paper? Again, if it's not written down, it doesn't count. But what can I write down that I can't not do? Because this is those things, that heartfelt self-transcendent goal, will be the key to unlock your true leadership potential. Because if you start exploring that today, you're going to define what drives you and experiment with your ways to serve other people and to evolve into a leader who inspires collective progress and purpose. And that is my wish for all of us. So, that's it for today's exploration. Now it's up to you. We've explored. Now it's up to you to experiment and evolve and recognize those moments when leadership is needed and then step into action. So the question is, will you do it?